Happy Halloween from the Belly House, Hamtramck, Michigan, Detroit, Michigan. I just wanted to make a post about the Hamtramck experience as seen through our Belly House project. There's a lot of national media that's been going on for a while now, glorifying the image of the people moving into Detroit and fixing up a house and having an urban garden and making artsy stuff and selling it on festival, art, whatever. I want to show you, after 30 years of being involved as an activist, what it's like, really, at least from my perspective, my family's perspective, having put a lot of investment into our area. But the Belly House Art Project, I got the keys to it 11 years ago on Halloween. I opened the door that Halloween, 2009, and it was not only raining later on that night, but the back door was wide open, and the back door was completely charred black. It had not been that way when I viewed the house with Andy Borjak, the corrupt real estate agent, whom really put me through the ringer. So the back door was wide open. You could see right into the backyard, completely charred. Someone set fire to it. There was no smoke in there at that time when I walked in, but three of the back area cast iron radiators had been taken and other damage done throughout the house. So that was my welcome to having this house. I had lived in Hamtramck prior to this for several years with my family, and before that, spent a lot of time with my friends who lived here and other experiences over the years. But this was tough. This is really tough to start off, and it got worse from there. Imagine that. So the real estate agent, Andy Borjak, did not pay past water bill and did not pay the past lawn cut fees from the city. So he was required to do this, and I have the paperwork still. But he dragged me into a false bidding war. Took a few weeks. Then when I won the bid, did not show up for the signing. If I did not sign at that point with the real estate company in Dearborn, then I would have lost my $1,000 deposit I had. I called him asking him where he was, and I saw him in the parking lot in his car, and he said he was on his way, and he never showed up. This is an incredibly shady guy. He goes by the name of Andy B still. Andy B. And he sells houses. You can look him up on the internet. This is a criminal. And he was linked up, I assume he still is, with the Hamtramck code enforcers, and he bragged about it. He says, I work with them. We resell houses over and over again. You better pay your bills. And that's when I pursued him about the water bill, and he refused to pay it. The lawn cut bills were $500 a lawn cut from the city. When I went to this particular city manager that we had at that time, he said, yes, this is corrupt. He says, this is wrong. He was able to get those taken off, but he wasn't able to get the water bill taken off. Or I would have pursued, further lawyers. And I wish I would have at that time. I was dealing with so much at that time, um, in many ways, that I wasn't able to fully, you know, proceed to the next point. It's this thing when you get abused over and over again, where you just want it to stop. You want your life to get on with. You want to get on with your projects and things, and you just keep getting abused. They take and take and take. So that's been my relationship with the city of Hamtramck and its many shadows and variations of itself. Here you see the back view from the upstairs window of the Belly House. There's the alley and across the street, various people, and they've all been negative towards me. On the right is a tan house. The previous owner was Tom Russell, and he was the head of the code enforcers for many years, and he's the one who dragged me into court with the city many times over issues with this project that I took over. It's obvious I'm doing something with it, and to take people into court is just absolutely predatory. But he knew the people around us, the neighbors, had long relationships with them, and I was told by people there when I first moved in that he let things go. He didn't do anything with his house or his property, and when people offered him free help, he said, F you, I'm going to live in this city the way I want. This is my city. Basically a tyrant. And this guy dragged hundreds of people, including myself, into jail. Not well, yeah, into jail as well, but into Hamtramck court many times. I've lived in many cities over the years, and I've never lived in a city where I got pictures in the mail and threats from the city of going to jail. Pictures of my house, pictures of the alley, pictures of a couple weeds. And this is at both of our houses, my wife Diane's house and our Belly house, art studios. So this guy Tom Russell was also linked up with my aunt Wendy, a real estate agent downriver. Jerry Karszewski was her boyfriend for 30 years. A delinquent guy. He's a contractor who ripped off my family many times, and he pressured me several times, threatened me for work when I got this house. This was like his thing. Especially, as I later found out, Tom Russell lived behind this house. He said over the years that they used to strip houses together. French doors, various things from houses they took. And it's ironic that I installed French doors into the Belly house. I put them in. I've been slowly with Diane and my family, and putting this house back together and making art there and setting an example that people have been following. So this next to us is the Gray House. The Gray House was there for 9 of the 11 last years of having the Belly House. The Gray House, when I first moved in, was visibly, from all I could tell, was something that could be worked with, that could be saved. And it wasn't. Ultimately, it was destroyed. So that was really sad. I wrote very detailed proposals for grants over the years, from 11 years, 10 years ago, 9 years ago. I kept getting denied these grants even though I was backed by world famous artists and a history of starting urban gardens in the area, of doing a lot with saving the city, stopping sprawl in the suburbs. And this Gray House seemed like it could have been saved. It was a 2-unit. It was a newer house. It had been built, as far as I understood, in the 90s. My neighbors, when I first moved in, were more friendly to me, and they told me more about the history of things. And actually, this house was set on fire by another neighbor across the street who was the father of Axel and various other of the Sleminski family's stepchildren who live in the Sleminski house across the street, whom you'll hear more about. So the previous house that was standing where the Gray House is, or was burnt down and killed a young girl. And there's more to the story, which is really shocking and sad, that I learned over time. But the father of Axel and the others, I think it's 3 of the boys that are stepchildren to the Sleminski family. The Sleminski's family had Kelly Sleminski, who is in various trials over killing Robert Hackney, and I was a juror on his trial for 6 weeks. And I had no idea he was connected with that house. And I tried to get off the jury, and they wouldn't let me off. And the guy who wouldn't let me off was Kelly Sleminski's attorney, Todd Flood. Todd Flood was appointed by Bill Schuette, the Attorney General of Michigan, to investigate and prosecute the governor, Governor Snyder, and the proceedings at Flint, Michigan. Can you imagine that? When I heard that that was happening, I just was like, oh my gosh, could this get any worse? I sounded the alarms to many people. I had to call the governor on this house, the Gray House, because it was constant crime. Here's the back view, and it just every year got worse and worse. I wasn't getting the grants. I wasn't getting through the gatekeepers who hated me for various reasons and still do. Um, and being blocked. So these people were coming in and out in the middle of the day, taking metal. There was the scrap metal craze during the Depression, and I couldn't get the police out. So I called the governor, Governor Snyder, this wicked person. I said, please help. I can't get police to help me. You passed this law about scrapping, and they're doing this right in the middle of the day, even. And so what he did, his solution was to get it knocked down right away, and that was not anything I had to do with. He didn't. I never got to talk with the governor. I talked with his assistant, whoever it was. Um, they put it on the fast track to get knocked down. My house was damaged in the process. I was able to get $800 from the crew, which was nothing compared to what happened. A broken window. My new gutter was damaged. Part of the roof was damaged. Um, Plants, mulch, rocks I put down, all gone. I don't know why they came so close to my house. The fence bent and broken, and roots from that pine tree this majestic pine tree that was by my shed. Now it's suffering, and most of it's gone. I've had to trim a ton of branches. They dug up everything up against my house. So um, they removed this gray house eventually, and there were parties going on. The New York represented artist group across the street, George Romney and crew. They have 3 houses across the street now. They own, as far as I know, most of the open lots that I planted on. My family put trees on, Diane and I, Zeke. Um, they, again, someone else is taking the credit. I have other posts about this and more to come. But I was very sad to see this happen. At one point, more to the story of the Gray House, a family showed up after a few years, and they were just like hanging out in the backyard and kind of tidying things, and they were just always in the backyard. I'm like, who are these people? They were sleeping out there in the backyard, and eventually they told me that they were the parents of the young child that was killed in the house, and that they had another child that um, other part of the family that would show up now and then had taken care of, and now they were just claiming as their own child. And these people had hitchhiked from California to see their kid and were homeless. And it was just an amazing, sad story. I should have, recorded more. I have met so many people with stories that would just tear your heart out. And it's been hard for me to record them. It's enough for me to sit there and listen and try to be compassionate and help people in my own way for whatever help I can offer. But to record people's pain is really difficult and not worthy, I don't think. So, in my story, though, I can say that, when I finally found out who these people were, at first I treated them sadly like, I treated other people who would come there. I try to scare them off. And, but once I learned who these people were, I did try to help them for a bit, then they disappeared. They were pushed off by Mrs. Baker, who was in their family, and others. And this house, just had such an aura about it. And like I said, the art group across the street raided it. I called the police that night, and I have photos from that night and some video. But at the same time, I didn't want to get them in super serious trouble, but I wanted them to leave the house alone. I mean, it's a strange thing. It's a felony if they want to give you a felony, or the police just don't freaking show up. So you got these two extremes, and this art group is taking materials out of this house, 2x4s and various things, out of this garage, taking them to their three houses that their freaking various parents bought for them, the little spoiled brats. And, later on, after I'd been vocal about the story for a few years, I saw that they had a construction crew come and take out the wall. They couldn't even do it for themselves. They took out the materials that they stole, and I saw them being taken away. But so the police didn't come that night during the party, um, and this house was mysteriously set on fire a couple times. The art group, George Romney, who owns the house across the street, and his partner friend, um, she also owns one of the houses, and they were coming in and out, and the Sleminski kids were coming in and out, and it's everybody was just having their way with this place. And imagine living, having a house 4 feet from this place. And not only that, but getting, materials hit on your house and damage, um, parts of the property being mistaken for yours. So you're getting pictures taken of it and dragged into court, and you got to explain to the judge that this isn't your property and please do something to help me and yada yada, and you just get shuffled out and you just spend half the day or more, in the most ugly place that there can be, Hamtramck court. Um, and so a lot of us got our water shut off, and not only did they shut our water off for being a little bit late, but they advertised it. They make an example of us. And here you can see they spray painted all over my sidewalk and other people's sidewalk off. Totally unnecessary. And so this post piece that I put out in that spot, I had been displaying various pieces of art on it as the years went by, or months and years, and various events. Well, it's been for a few years dedicated to water, and this is, still the current look of the post. But just that water is a human right. And before this, I had, several other pieces. You'll see a few later on. At some point, I'll do a video just on the posts and the idea of posts and the, sarcasm of internet posts and the billboard posts nearby and all the posts that you see around. But so our water, has been shut off now for several years. There's a long story to that. Our windows have been getting broken. This window in particular twice has been broken. Once, I assume, by the company that knocked down the building, and now that's an open lot by others who just want to attack the house freely. One thing that also drove me to this place was like the sunsets, just the massive sunsets downriver, southern part of Wayne County. We get massive sunsets in Flat Rock and skyscapes, and here on the edge of the city you get that. Also, I'd like to see a green belt built across the highway into the brownfields that are on the other side of the highway. I've been wanting to see green belts built all over the city and proposals, and again, I've seen like 5% or so what I've ever envisioned accomplished. There's so much more. It's just sad. As a longtime landscape painter, I am intrigued, fulfilled by the views of what I consider to be, the ultimate creation, the ultimate artist, God, just constantly, changing. evolving. Evolution is totally the spirit of artistic creation. Who could deny that God would be an evolver? Just because we humans put down in word something that we thought was the truth. I have never totally believed that we are able to convey the truth because we're humans and we're imperfect and we're sinners and not aware of everything, and we're doing our best we can. Things get changed over time, but in my view, God is the ultimate artist. you know, and people ask me why I have crosses and why I why I exhibit various Catholic symbols, and so I mean I don't want to ram religion down anyone's throat. I'm not a crusader in that sense, but I have my experience, and from what I understand, you know, God is real. Spirituality is takes many forms for many people, but um, there is that spirituality there, and it's heavily invested in what I'm doing. In a local group called Act 17, which I know a little bit about, but I really appreciate what they've done. They talk about it often, and you look in Acts, and in the Bible it says, go to the edge of your city. Go to the edge of your town, go to where the ruins are, and rebuild. Rebuild the walls, rebuild the city, and you will be known as a rebuilder of walls. And that's what I'm trying to do. I mean, I don't want to build a wall to keep people out, literally, but I want to rebuild the city. I don't want to build into the woods and the suburbs and the prairie. I want that to be saved. I want God's creation to be saved. And I want people's creations, these amazing houses. These houses, like the Belly House and the Gray House, original Gray House there before the Gray House was probably built out of, is this amazing wood, Michigan virgin pine, cedar. The smells, here in Diane's house where I am right now, it's a wood house as well, just a few blocks away. And I do a lot of posts from the attic upstairs where it's just pure wood. And it is like petrified, strong wood. You like try to saw into this wood, hammer into this wood. You're like, imagine hammering into stone. So I do not want to waste this integrity, these trees that are still alive in their own way. The work of people who were incredibly skilled and incredibly honest, and I want to recycle. And you will hear later on about these groups, like this artist group across the street who were involved with Object Orange, and they painted these houses orange to get them burnt down, and ultimately led to this house getting burnt down. No one helped. All the things going on in the city, they could have helped me. They could have helped in the project. We could have worked together, and nothing was done. And I want people to understand that. In the same post earlier throughout my page, you can look at something about Jack White that I posted and other things about Detroit arts culture that will be coming. This is the thing, that there's this competition that goes on, fierce competition and inside trading, preferred citizenry, gentrification of its own, you know, modern day existence. All these things are going on. There's a lot more going on. Uh, I'll talk about more about Governor Snyder, the past governor, and ways that he and business people across the state courted spray painters and projects with spray painting in general, felony projects, with the promise that you will be exonerated by the governor. But here you see the fence that divides myself from my neighbor, Miss Baker. the Baker family. That's their fence, and it's breaking Wayne County code law, made of three different materials: metal, wood, various things woven in there, aluminum, siding, all this stuff. When I first moved in, I offered free labor to help her put in a new fence, and she refused. There's various things that were growing up in between all these trees. Sorry, trees that are junk trees growing up in between all these materials. But I have donated a ton of time just cutting those down. But she refused for my help. And just last year, earlier this year, put in a new fence, and it's built a foot away from what's pictured here. So there's a space in between, and all this stuff was actually in my yard. That's the kind of relationship I have with the neighbors in this area. It's just insane. Here you can see during one of the polar vortexes, I'm not sure if this is the first, second, or third, but this is kind of a typical view of Belmont in front of the Belly House. In the wintertime in the snow, and the neighbors, this gang of artist people across the street represented in New York City, Courtney Love's gallery, you can see they have piles of snow out in the middle of the street. Look at that white van on the left. Look at that pile of snow next to it. That is technically the middle of the street where they piled that snow. Look at the ruts going down Belmont. That's down my side of the street where I am supposed to be parking. That's the kind of relationship that the people across the street have had. There's these smiles and, Jesse Smollett kind of way of playing the media, but at the same time, they're pricking you and trying to get something going to bounce off of you and say, hey, look at what these people are doing to me. Please exhibit my art. Please get me in movies. Please give me $1 million. That's the sickness of our time. So here, if I even park on the left side of the street, the father, who's paid for everything across the street, who's a used car dealer in Lansing, he's even called me and said, "Don't park on our side of the street." Here's a photo of me that Diane took under one of our majestic pine trees. This one on the front, I believe. This was probably about 9 years ago. And Diane has really been a major help in trying to get us moving forward with the project and keeping it alive. Otherwise, it's been a vast desert of no one helping us for 11 years. Literally, I've written for many grants, detailed about getting the lots, about creating a residency. It's not just about us, but about bringing people from all over the world to our area, giving them a place to stay for a while for a residency, letting them make art and let them exhibit somewhere in the city. I'm not saying exhibit at the Belly House. We could link up with some other gallery. And, as usual, for 30 years, there's no compliance, no help. From community gallery to inner city gallery setting, college, activist location of, human rights, there's been nothing that I've ever seen really that's been sustainable with local activities. It's like all these people are really trying to do things for themselves. And that I say with heartbreak. It's not something I'm not promoting myself here. And I want to say that clearly. I am working, and my family are working on things that need to be done. And period. That is what it is. These things need to be done. It's our art and our life. These other people have profited. They've used precious time to profit for themselves. Now, if you look at a gallery listing in our area, online gallery right now is really hot. You will see everything is pretty much about the election, about the economy, and the earth, the ecology. these things are things that I worked on for years, 30 years in my art, and I was punished for it. Literally punished for, focusing on these things in my art. And at some point, I'll make a post with my art, and over the years, you'll get to see 30 years of evolution in the art and concept. And you'll see what I'm talking about in truth. I'm not just talking out of my ass like a lot of people are just showing up because I'm famous and doing a concert for Bernie Sanders and playing Seven Nation Army. That isn't me. I'm on the ground zero floor front line. They talk about front line communities. We are front line if there ever was front line. Here you can see one of my neighbors, Mrs. Baker again, walking past me with a gas can. These people, when I show up, get in my proximity and threaten you in that sense, coming into your proximity. At one point, we had a movie screening about the Koch brothers, or whatever their names are, but it was a move on thing. They distributed the DVD, and we had an event. No one showed, but we were playing the video. We're out backyard with a DVD player and TV, and this person, Mrs. Baker, just walked by with a gas can. She's on the other side of the fence watering. And it was like within 5 feet of, being able to put the water right on our TV and, the electrical, and just really crazy. And she's called the police on us so many times. And the police finally said, okay, if he's out working, then you don't, go out into the front yard. Well, here I show up to shovel the snow as I always do, and she shows up. She already had someone, the people down the street. It was a contractor who is incredibly corrupt down the street, owns several houses, drives the wrong way on the street every day with his trucks. He snowblows her lawn. I'm sorry, her sidewalk. So you can see here, her sidewalk is completely done. She has several lots. It's all done. She's just out there putzing around, and I've showed up to, shovel my snow. And she's out there just putzing around and getting in my proximity. She used to leave food on my porch that was, outdated and various things. I think she tried to poison me once. And I called DHS about it. But, and the saying amongst many that I've met, and musicians that don't live in this area, various people, they knew this area for many years, and they said that it's a heartbreak. And they said that people here don't do their jobs. That isn't like some racist person saying that. That's like a Mexican American shaman drummer from Ann Arbor saying this, who works in mental health and spends the rest of his time drumming and spiritual chanting at the Zen Center. This is the truth of our area, that there are so many people who do not do their jobs in southeast Michigan. Here, you can see the people right on my window in the dust often, and that's crazy. We've got cameras installed now. But also, you can see these dog people, they bring their dogs constantly to the open lots, and there's shit everywhere. And they bring the dogs right by me. And it's just kind of like another level of harassment. Yeah, I love plants, I love trees, I love greenery. I've been fighting for this stuff 30 plus years. And it's amazing the two-facedness of our culture when you can look in the arts, gallery events, magazines, whatnot, music, all these things, and they're so green, green, green. But when it comes down to it, who's the one who's been fighting for it for all these years, and who's got projects in the works, and who's being blocked? This my neighbor, the Baker family, has been on the street, various houses for 50 plus years, and has told me they were outright linked with a Royal Oak Catholic Church on 12 Mile in Woodward, where they had a Nazi priest. This guy is famous for his radio program, and he broadcast during World War II Nazism throughout Detroit. And this broadcast was powerful. It got to downriver, South Wayne County, It originated in Oakland County. And she still goes, or at that point when she told me, she still went to that church all these years later. And Hamtramck is a city in the middle of Detroit. You would think, okay, Detroit is a black city. Everyone thinks that. Well, Hamtramck, the city inside of Detroit, is predominantly white. Now it's, Muslim is huge in our city, but they have their own prejudice as well, and they are, they take in black people, and there's African American black people that are Muslim for sure, but Malcolm X was from our area, and he's a huge hero of mine ever since my teen years. But yeah, no, Hamtramck is um, very extremely racist, and especially Eastern European white racist, and they're still fresh because they've been coming here every decade, waves of Eastern Europeans, and um, I had no doubt that Nazis came here, and it is proven that Nazis have been found here collecting Social Security since World War II. But the outright attitudes of many people in this city, that is predominantly white. I think it's still predominantly white. Um, Many are extremely racist, and then the Muslims are very racist and close-minded in their own ways, and various other people. But it's a huge lesson in the world. There's this amazing document that you can find online by the United Nations called Dimensions in Racism. This was created by the United Nations in 2003, and you can find it online. You can search it, United Nations Dimensions in Racism. Amazing document that, you know, talks about how racism is something that occurs all across the globe, all throughout time, and that it's a fallacy to think about it in one particular way. But here in Hamtramck, there's all kinds of varieties of racism. But the predominant area racism of the white Eastern European, um, I don't know how exactly you want to term it, but it does still exist here. And I've been fighting it head on in my own way and in a lot of ways over the years, but here in Hamtramck as well. Here you see a little bit inside of the studio house and the French doors I put in, along with Diane, and well, it's not a coal stove, but wood burning stove. Been trying to keep some of the lead glass windows. A lot of our windows have been getting broken by people. The stove really heats us up well. And amazing skies are just huge for my art and Diane's photography. And we try to keep lights lit and life going on there. There's been a lot of hipsters moving in lately, and various other people trying to act like they've been, they're doing some kind of urban renovation, but we're the real deal. We've been there for a while, and you can see here the amazing moon and stars. The animals in that part of town have been amazing. The cats, the wild dogs, the pheasants. There's a lot of, even raccoons, squirrels, of course. I'd like to see more rabbits. The rabbits have seemed to disappear, and we've been trying to bring a few back. But just a wide variety of plant life, animal life, and more to build on. And here you can see some more of the posts over time. Um, Here we got insecure, and a play on the word insecure, but literally, preferred citizen. If you're in, you're secure. Another view of the Belly House from a few years ago. Painting here that a Chicago person purchased about Detroit, and that was interesting. He had a website called I Heart Detroit. But the kitchen here, the Belly House, and also my son's studio room, and then some of his work up on the walls. I put up tons of work, and lots of people have looked at that. Here's some of Diane's pieces, and Diane's work mixed in with my work. We've had lots of open house studio events where people have come in and photographed her whole studio. They've made us offers on, to buy the building. We've turned down a ton of offers, um, but and some people have said, "Well, why don't you create a non-profit, not for profit?" And you'll see from other posts that I have about other local not-for-profits. Um, I just, at this point, I don't see it happening. Um, I don't think it's honest. I need to profit in some way. We need to profit and to be able to use that profit to invest. And there's just no excuse for thinking about it another way and pretending that, we're doing something, totally not for profit. So, um, we want a studio, we want to maintain our studio here, but we would like to open it up for other people to be able to stay here. If you're a musician, if you're an artist, if you're a writer, if you're, a filmmaker or whatever, and you want to spend some time in Detroit, in our area, right off the highway, right next to bus pick up, drop off, train, downtown Hamtramck, you can do this with little money. And I've been an artist in residence over the years, and I know what it's like. I've been down to the last dollar, last 50 cents, literally. I've coasted back into town on fumes. Um, that's, unfortunately, the way that the artist has had to survive in our culture. And I hope that that changes at least enough to where we can be more sustainable. Um, but here you see the upstairs front um, studio, one of the main studios. Just this year, a hole opened up in the roof, a literal another window. I just couldn't believe it when I saw it. An animal had been coming in and out, rain. It was wind damage from a tree that poked a hole in the other side of the roof. We had, with the help of Diane, we had the west side of the roof replaced, and the east side we had been waiting for. We hoped we could stretch it out for a few more years, but we've been finding bullet holes, and bullets, and we've been finding other damage and leaks. So, and all of a sudden we have this. So we're getting the roof replaced in any day now. That side of the roof is supposed to be replaced. And then we also paid last October, a year ago, for new windows, Rams Residential, and they took $1,000 deposit and they screwed us. This wasn't just the pandemic. This is months before the pandemic leading up to it, and they never came out and never did the job. And then the pandemic hit, and boom, that was, there's a lot of other online um, accounts from people who have been screwed by Rams Residential. And so far, they've got $1,000 of our money, and it's unsettled yet. I'm still trying to figure out how to go about this. I reported them to the Better Business Bureau, and we'll see how things go. Here's a painting that I created at the Belly House. It's very large, about 6 foot high by 4 foot wide. This was actually a commission painting, and I don't do many commission paintings, and I try to keep extremely pure and honest with my commission paintings, that I'm not just, you know, a whore basically out there with skills. But this piece was created but commissioned by a family that I did another job for, and it turned into a horrible experience. And just horrible. All the layers of horribleness I can't really get into here so far, but if anyone wants to comment, I'm willing to get into that more. But they gave me something to go by, gave me a deposit of I think 125 or maybe 200 some dollars. And this is a 6 by 4 foot painting, y'all. And I created this work. It's called Playing Chess with the City. I'm sorry, Playing Checkers with the City. Might as well be Playing Chess with the City. Playing Checkers with the City. And it's very, this would not have been created without looking at the other piece. I have to, acknowledge that. I think if you saw the other piece, you would make a connection. But these people did not like this work, and they refused to pay me the remaining $500. And they live in a mansion on Cass Lake, in Oakland County. So this is a piece that I have at the Belly House still, but I think it's just a centerpiece of the whole effort as it is. It's just playing checkers. Definitely. And here's the back view of the fence I created, the city forced me to create. Here's the back of the Belly House. Several years ago, I've got so many plants now going, and here's the space between myself and Mrs. Baker, 4 or 5 feet. I try to be respectful. I chop wood a lot. I really appreciate chopping wood and the time and planting trees. You see a smoke bush here. Here's one of the witch hazels I planted on the open lot. We've got several maple and various other kinds of trees, evergreen, and planted throughout the open lots that are still growing, thankfully. But here's what was left. The witch hazel was taken out and put on top of the rocks, and then the second time we put it back in the dirt, it was gone, and just the rocks left. Here's our shed, and we've had many a message left for us there. This is what it looked like when I originally got the house. And what's interesting is that, okay, from the outside it doesn't look like much, but the inside it's like a 100-year-old barn. It's so neat. And the shingles on top were indestructible shingles that now you can only order from Europe. After I resided with cedar boards the outside, what do you know? The transformer above exploded or was shot, maybe by the Sleminskys or someone. But Mrs. Baker called the police and accused me of dumping sludge on this. Obviously, you can see that this is not something that someone could have done purposefully, really. That's still, totally open. Someone calls the police on you and accuses you of something, and nothing gets called of that.
Right here that had a tree. It was a terrible tree like this. No, actually, it was straight. It was a shelter like this, pointing straight up.
So I've been visited by many a crazy person. That was one of these guys here who's pictured. He showed up one day while I was working, and a lot of people show up, are part of this artist gang while I'm working around the house, and all day he was in the alley and around me, and he was kicking stuff and acting out. I'm like, this guy's going crazy. I've been left like trash messages, which I've saved. There are obviously things that have been left for me to take view of. But here he is again. We showed up and he was just going nuts. We had to call police, and I still see him throughout the city. This guy's just staring at me. He's not doing anything. He's granted by various artist groups and other groups that I will not mention. And it's sad. And here's the open lots that I planted on, and these trees are massive now. Here's where they were smaller. And now that rival group owns them. And here's the party that they have. They have all these artist friends. They parked all over the lots, and they stole from the gray house next to me this night. And this is the guy who owns one of the houses, and his girlfriend owns the other house. But his parents pay for everything. They're from Lansing, and they register his cars from Lansing. They say he's handicapped, but he's out walking all over the city and mowing the entire lawns and everything. He's younger than me. He's representing New York, the same gallery as Courtney Love. So I'm very confused at, how someone like this, who's linked up with like Object Orange, who are they're burning down houses by painting them orange. Why they succeed. He was taking, the arson signs with the eyes, so they had to spray paint them. Here's the Raven House, which I loved. Here's he and his girlfriend. They're both, represented in highfalutin galleries. They get $5,000 a painting. They're younger than me. They went to the same school as me. Why? Why is there all of this preferred citizenry connection? Why is that allowed to continue? This Object Orange group, which one of the main people behind it was Gregory Tom, whom had me in a few art openings and came over to our studio and looked intensely at our works and stuff. He said that he thought that this was the only way to effectively deal with the problems in Detroit and the blight. And so they would paint these houses orange. And they thought it ensured that these places would be knocked down, burnt down, or whatever. And I just couldn't understand that, and I am about saving these places. This is history. It's not a place to, come in for a few minutes and do something to promote yourself. And I had many years of spending time in the Detroit landscape and, recording people's stories and taking in people's stories, not always able to record them. But, this is just insane. He was able to use this as a way, Gregory Tom, to promote himself like the others. And now he, like the others, he's the head of the fine art department at Eastern Michigan and Ypsilanti, where I actually was in various shows in the 90s. And that's a whole nother story in itself. But this guy's younger than me, and he's from another area, and he's the head of the art department there through projects like this. Here's the night where the people across the street, the art gang again, they went over to this house and they took a ton of stuff. You can see a 2x4 that they dropped there because I called the police and because I pulled out my camera. And it's just sad. These people have targeted me. They're younger than me, and there's this gang mentality of this generation that, we're going to make a place for ourselves and make money on the internet and talk about you and group up against you, and there's nothing you can do about it because you're 5 years older than us or 10 years older than us. I mean, it's a real kind of children of the corn kind of way of dealing with contemporary art in your society, I believe. So at the Billy House, I've received so many threats, like trash objects left for me that I've pictured here. So many of those, like trash messages, like assemblage art, slash trash. And I've made postings about the recycling people and the spray painters over at the recycling center. Here you can see the billboard above the Belly House, and it often shows various music acts at the casino. Here's one that I really appreciate, Heart. That was my first concert I ever went to when I was, how old was I? I was like 12 years old, and I won tickets off the the radio station and got the album, Bad Animals album, and was able to go to Heart. Took my friend, drummer Shane, Shane Goad, who later called himself a Dajanon, who's in the Speed Drummer Hall of Fame. But yeah, here the idea of posting things, became an important part of my art, and playing off this billboard and the internet, and what I consider the internet to be like kind of the Tower of Babel, like it's our modern Tower of the Babel, like we can all communicate with each other all across the globe and even cross language barriers. At the same time, we're not accomplishing that much. I mean, we are in a lot of ways, but in a lot of ways we're not. We're and if anything, proving how cold we can be. But Diane and I have focused on trying to make as much art as we can with the Belly House, Billy House situation, even with all the negativity. You see again the roses. These roses are pretty old. It's a really beautiful Detroit variety, and love to see them climb all over the city. Also, in the distance, you can see in various churches and all the repetition of homes. And here again is the gray house. And like I said, I had to call Governor Snyder to get this house knocked down. I originally wanted it to be saved. It was in shape, it seemed like, to be saved when I first moved in. And I talked to my main benefactor, Dr. Haddad, about it. And he was even there with me. And, he thought at that point when he saw it, it was too much work. And it probably was, halfway 5 years ago when he finally looked at it. And I've had him look at other properties in the city. Um, People like Michael Morris, the well-known lawyer who's all over TV. He was a student of mine in the 90s, and I tried to get him to buy the Sheridan Court building in the Cass Corridor where I lived. And I had him come there for classes at one point. I'm like, look at this building. It's only $500,000 on sale right now, and he passed on it. Oh my gosh, if we had so much going on at that building. Rodriguez, from searching for Sugar Man. Paul Steele was the building manager, son of Jackie Joe Steele, the artist. So many musicians and artists there, poets. It was amazing. And Mike Morse really passed up on a gem there. So you can see the Gray House in its last moments here. I was really sad to see it go, and it wasn't that old of a house. Like I said, it had been burnt down not like 20 some years ago by Axel's father, who's in Texas jail for the rest of his life for killing a little child and for burning down this house, the Sleminski family across the street. And this is the open space that resulted. And thankfully, these, I believe it's an elderberry tree that's growing here is still there. They left that alone. And lately, this is where others have all of a sudden shown up that I don't see, but they've created kind of a garden around it. Um, it's been hard watching these things be passed on to other people who don't deserve them. Here you can see on the post there was this basketball backboard that I painted a prairie on, basic prairie for what I hope for the garden projects for this space. And that has disappeared in the last year or so. I don't know what happened to it on the post there. Someone got it, so it's gone. But you can see here the evolution of now the two open lots. Now the gray house is gone, and sometimes it's grown pretty tall. I mean, what you see here is what a lot of us have been dragged into Hamtramck court for. Imagine that. You're in front of a judge facing jail time for that. These people come to this open lot and they do donuts constantly. They come like so close to my house, and the city has yet to do anything. Clem Heckman, the guy who owns the open lot next to me, does nothing. Here's a close-up view of the backboard that's now missing, gone. Who knows? Someone will probably, sell it someday. I've had many works stolen. I originally had also put the puppet, or I call them puppets, but stuffed dolls on the post, kind of like a memorial for the young girl who was killed in the house, and everything's gone. This is the guy, Clinton Heckman. I've never seen this guy. 3 years now. He owns the open lot next to the Belly House. There's this whole hipster internet article about him, about how he loves to go to certain bars and go to certain restaurants, and he's been from Nashville to Detroit, back and forth. Can you imagine that? You imagine that, you have an open lot next to your house, and there was a vacant house there for years that you called the cops on, for every week to ask for help. It got knocked down, and now this mysterious dude, Clem Heckman, owns the lot. He's putting a park bench off the alley next to your old wooden shed that you've been defending and the people have been leaving human feces. And here's, more detailed internet jargon about this stuff. There's been so much selling. Like our city manager, we have a city manager that was appointed by ex-Governor Snyder, the corrupt Snyder, and she's still here. She's demanding $250,000 a year. 50% of the people who live in our city of Hamtramck live below the poverty line. Come on, people, $250,000 a year, $250,000. So here you got the city of Hamtramck, and they're cutting the open lots for free for this Clem Hackman. And you can see he is way behind on taxes. Over almost $2,000 in taxes this guy owns. $2,000 almost in taxes for this open lot. And look at these people cut the lot for him. And I asked these people, like, what's going on? Why do you? They say, well, it's still on our to-do list. Once the city takes it off our to-do list, then we won't cut this lot anymore. They charged me $500 a cut. They've been doing this for 3 years for this Clem Heckman. What does he owe? Why do they have artist soccer games out here? My family hoped to use this space, my classes, my students. I would have shared it with people even. But no. So you can see here my gutter. This was a new gutter, just 2 years old. Up above, you can see where it was dented in, and then the window was broken by the demolish of the gray house, which I got $800 for, but I probably had a couple $1,000s worth of damage from them coming so close to my house. And that's not even to mention my water pipe. My water pipe runs along that side of the house, so I still don't know, because I haven't had water for several years now. I still don't know if that water pipe is still in decent condition. And that's a lead pipe. So everyone has a lead pipe connecting the city main to their house. And it's just sad. And so now we have these two open houses. It's the Belly House there. And there's locals who just do donuts and terrorize those lots. You can see their tracks through there. The city does nothing about this. A couple of days ago, I got in my car and went down the road, and the cop got behind me in like 2 seconds. I was going the speed limit, but we got people going 70, 90 miles an hour all the time. Right now, I'm listening to them. This is corruption. I shovel the snow here. I'm the one who does it. No one else does it. Clem Heckman doesn't do it. So these are many, many, many frustrations I have with the city of Hamtramck and Detroit. The falsities, if that's even a word, of come into the city and bring us back, and boy, you get screwed. Just like my friends Jack Beal and Sandra Freckleton did in New York City, in Greenwich Village, Soho. They helped bring that back, and they got screwed by the artists. Chuck Close screwed them. All these people screwed them and sold the building under their feet and made a profit after they turned around the city, that part of the city. So here I am struggling to hold on to my house, the studio. Here we have some woodland sunflower variety that I've always loved. This part of the alleyway, now there's a bench that Clem Heckman put in, kind of just to the right of this, that I don't have pictured. But this is from a few years ago, a picture that Diane took, and the next several pictures after this will be a series of Diane photos from over the years. But this fence piece and the telephone pole are not my property, and I am continually charged for a grapevine that grows up this pole. And I love the grapevine, actually. And the gate piece actually says 1932. That's the gray house. And I am continually charged for everything that grows on there. I have to trim all of this stuff. I'm the one who does it. Even the city crew that comes every month for this Clem Heckman and his privileged ways, they come and cut everything, but they don't even deal with this. I deal with it every month, or else I'm in Hamtramck City Court talking to Judge Crott or the judge before her, Judge Peruk, all longtime business owners in the city, longtime families, connected families. I'm in there talking to them about, hey, this isn't my stuff. Here you see Diane's photos of the open lot. You know, we would have so much going here by now. Here's the backyard on the side of the belly house where we've been letting some ivy grow. Some wonderful pieces. This is before the window was broken the second time. We have a real connection with nature. We've worked to save spaces, clean up spaces all around the metro area in Michigan. Planted many trees, you know, not keeping count. Here again is the fence dividing the belly house from the Baker residence. And wintertime, you know, things take on such a beautiful quality. Um, though they're not native, we have a lot of peregrine falcons that were introduced, and they are interesting. They spend a lot of time in our area, our backyard. We've had our house opened up during the artist crawls over the years a few times, and there's these various artist crawls because there's so many artists in our square mile city of Hamtramck that they've organized a night where you can go from studio to studio if they're participating and talk to the artist and look at their stuff. And we've had a lot of people come in and take photos and talk to us a little bit, but it only seemed to result in them doing the things that we're talking about doing. And it's been tough. It's been really tough dealing with that, watching these other people proceed with fairly shallow intentions. Here you see the belly house furnace, a wood stove we put in, and the main heat source for many years now. And it's been honest and raw. Chopping wood is an amazing part of my life when I'm able to do it and not be harassed by people. There's been Detroiters have been killed by police for chopping wood, and that's another story. But here we are cooking potatoes on our belly house oven. Nothing like leaving potatoes on overnight. But our project has really been something about hanging on, um, despite what others might say, like, we're just trying to keep on keeping on. When you face someone who's like shoveling snow onto your newly shoveled snow sidewalk, or when you're facing a city that doesn't plow your street, or you neighbors who do, you know, illegal activities around you constantly and threaten you not to talk in the no talk culture. Those things are what we experience every day, and it still continues today and needs to stop. And Detroit will never grow, no matter how many grants and sad sob stories are given. You got to end this culture of the no talk culture, and you got to give people dues. These lots. This was our idea, our passion. We would have done so much by now, and we can still add so much, but they're held back. So this is just a little bit of our story. I hope that those who are watching have been able to hang on. I know it's a lot of information. I've been a teacher for 20 plus years, so I'm good at just like talking and walking around the room a lot. and trying to give people as much information as I can in the time that I have. The Belly House Project is meant to be a musical, multimedia art extravaganza. If Van Gogh could come back into Detroit at this time in life, I think he would have been a part of this. Van Gogh's a massive influence in my life, and should be a national icon. I spent a lot of time in Ohio also, and getting into Charles Birchfield, who's considered the national Charles Birchfield, the national Vincent Van Gogh, and I love his work as well. Just amazing, and I wish I could have met him, and he would have been totally behind what I'm doing right now with Diane and Zeke and family. The Belly House is a creative space for all, and I hope that you can help us somehow.